these are the moments in the season where things are just more interesting, and those last-minute winners seem a lot more than they do in September and October. They're still great, but they just don't feel as big as they do at this moment in the season. Weekend wrap-up time, team. One of the very few weekends in my life where I haven't really had a chance to watch a lot of football due to work. So I'll start with what I did watch yesterday, which was Man City and Newcastle. I actually enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game. And I'm going to dive straight into this part of why I enjoyed it. And I put my phone away. I had really been on my phone at all day at work. Felt good. And I put my phone away. And I really sat and I watched the game. First half on my laptop and then second half on the TV. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was a good game and it got me thinking a little bit. We've talked a lot about how football is boring these days. And look, I think there's a huge part of that I agree with and I'm on board with that. I've kind of said it a little bit too, where, yeah, I'm with it. But another part of me just thought, like, you know, how often, if you sit and watch a football game, how often are you picking up your phone, scroll? And I think we say, oh, well, that's because the game's boring. But if you think about football, and it got me thinking about going back to when I coached, or if you're the manager, you're the players, obviously, you're there, and you're zoned in, right, to get the win. You know, every little bit of how the game flows is so much a part of what the sport is. And look, I think the ball going out and people taking all these long throw-ins and stuff is taking too long to get the game restarted. One of the great things about football is the ball goes out and it usually comes back in quickly from the throw-ins, and the pace kind of keeps moving from that front. So I get it, but yeah, I just kind of thought I really enjoyed that. And it wasn't like there was a end-to-end basketball-y type game between Man City and Newcastle. It was an entertaining game. It had a lot on it due to the title race. But yeah, it was just something I thought. So just something for you people out there, if you see this, you know, have a think. Like, how often are you really just, is it just because you're picking up your phone? Because that's what our minds are at right now with TikTok and everything. It's just all so much short and sharp that we don't really have the patience to sit and watch like something build up, you know? So that was just one take, but I enjoyed the game. It was a huge win for Man City. It was a hard-fought, dug-in win. I mean, I thought Erling Haaland was absolutely everywhere. And I tweeted this last night, but, you know, his all-round game this season has really come on and has really improved. And he definitely didn't need to do it because he got the goals. And for me, that's all, you know, my striker really is the main thing they need to do is just get me the goals. But in terms of just being able to link up the play and get involved in it and his defensive duties and kind of really being like a team player has been amazing. And I think it's really cool to see someone try and evolve when it would be quite easy for him just to stay and be, no, get me the ball up in the box and I'll score the goals for you. And there's nothing wrong with that at all. Like I say, that's what he's paid to do. But he's really come on this season. He's really evolved. He gets involved in the game a lot more. And it's him and Pep that are really leading this whole thing. And you can see them based off the celebrations at the end of the game with Pep and Haaland. Like, you know, they really feel like they're in the mix, obviously. And Nico O'Reilly gets the 2 goals for City. Thought he was fantastic in the middle of the park. I know that's maybe more his natural position. And he looks a lot more comfortable there. He's looked good at left back, by the way. Don't get me wrong, but he looks like he'd go to a higher level in that centre midfield position based off kind of what I seen last night. I thought he was excellent and very well deserved for his 2 goals. Dan Burn obviously gets in the way, mixes it up with Haaland. He always likes to try and do that. They have the battle. But again, Newcastle just lacking a little bit of quality. You know, Elanga again, 50 million. And I always think when you sign someone, I was thinking this last night, you know, when I sign Elanga, what for me is Elanga's main strengths, and that is having the ball to run at people in space and to kind of take people on 1v1. There was one point where he could have played Anthony Gordon in and he should have and he didn't, and Gordon ends up being way offside and they don't end up playing it through, and the commentators are like, you should play it to him. And I agree, he's a professional football player at a high level, but I don't put Elanga in the category that he's going to find defence splitting passes for me as like an attacking player. Elanga's kind of head down, get to the line and get a ball in the box and get it in the mix and maybe have some goals. So yeah, I don't know, he's not going to be crazy creative for you. He had a great season at Nottingham Forest, but look, there's a reason you don't make it at Manchester United, even in the state that they've been in. That, you know, there's still a level to this. So yeah, just a bit blunt. Newcastle, it's another away defeat, and they've struggled away. And Eddie Howe struggles with the kind of 3 games in a week. I've said it a million times, but it was a really big win for City, and it put pressure on Arsenal today, who, yeah, comfortably put Spurs away. I haven't had a chance to see any of the highlights. I'm going to watch all the highlights of all the games I'm not caught today. And I'll do a separate video on that after, which will be out on Monday kind of dinner time, or potentially probably Tuesday morning. And it's a huge win for Arsenal, and it's good. You know, questions are asked of them. City are 2 behind them. Go and answer the question. And you go and do it emphatically in a derby against your rivals. And it's a poor one again for Spurs. And surely they can't get relegated, but by God, would it be a story if they could be? And it is a story at the bottom of the table now, with them being in the mix there. So I'm not going to comment, obviously, on the game because I didn't see it. I sat down on my break at work, literally just as Alexis McAllister gets the one that counts for Liverpool. A winner, by all accounts, a dreadful game, a dreadful performance again from Liverpool. But the luck swings the other way, that it hasn't been swinging for Liverpool as of late. And they get the goal, and they get a bit of luck, and they win the game 1-0, and it's a huge 3 points after Chelsea drew with Burnley yesterday, and United have got Everton away, and that new manager bounce for Chelsea is kind of just started to dip off now, and we'll see if the same happens to Manchester United tomorrow at Everton after drawing with West Ham. Chelsea, obviously, Burnley, and I forget who Chelsea played the week before, whether they drew or they lost, but yeah, I always thought, again, a bigger thing was just, again, football, we judge it week to week. You know, this is what this is about. This is it. But I always in my head envisioned this part of the season doing it was going to be so good, because this is the time, where it matters. This is the time where it matters. And you get close to the title races and the Champions League spots and the Europe spots and relegation and knockout phases and late rounds of cups. These are the moments in the season where things are just more interesting, and those last minute winners seem a lot more than they do in September and October. They're still great, but they just don't feel as big as they do at this moment in the season. So it's just, you know, when you talk about the season has been boring and everything like that, I think you always have to wait until now and to see how it ends and to see what there is to play for. And sometimes you can look at a table and the title's kind of, you know, all but done. Maybe Champions League spots are all but done. Teams are down the bottom, especially in the Premier League as of the last few seasons that have come up. Teams are already relegated even with about 10 to go. You know, you can kind of see where it's going to go, and you can't see it this season. So there's still a lot to play for. So it's going to be very, very interesting. But we'll see how the new manager bounce does for United tomorrow night. With regards to Scotland, same in the title race. It's a fantastic weekend for Hearts, who get over the line again. By all counts, it wasn't great, but it's a 1-0 win against Falkirk. Celtic get beat by Hibs, and Rangers managed to claw it back 2-0 down to Livingston, and they managed to get a point and just stay in there. And yeah, I think for Hearts, you know, Rangers and Celtic got the recruitment in January, and as did Hearts, don't get me wrong, but Rangers and Celtic went and spent the money and got who they felt they could try kind of drive themselves back into this with Hearts. And I think one thing that we underestimated is Shankland and Devlin will feel like new signings when they come back for Hearts. They really will. I mean, they're the 2 best players, right? They are the 2 best players and have been this season. And when your striker, your main striker, your goal scorer is out, that hurts Hearts. And when they come in, it'll give them a new lease of life and they'll look like a different team again. So they just need to keep plodding along until they get those 2 back. But in a weird way, as hard as it's been for Hearts without them, and they've still done very well, I'm kind of looking at it, I'm thinking of the story, you know, written, and you're kind of thinking them coming back just seems to be about perfect timing for Hearts, and they will take that this weekend. No doubt that is a really, really good weekend for them. And Motherwell last night with a 5-0 humping over St Mirren, great football, and a lot of people are saying they're not out of it. You know, that manager's doing a great job there. I watched his interview after the game. He talks really well, and he made a really good point about it's in the micromanaging when they were saying how you getting the best out of players. It's pulling someone aside on the bus on game day when you've thought of something, or pulling them aside in the changing room on game day, or saying something in the last training session. And yeah, I love that. That's how I always felt as a coach, was, you know, just pulling people aside and having those little conversations and saying something to stick in someone's head just to do with the game and their position relative is always massive, more so than the bigger picture that you work on in the week with training. So I think that's it. Let me just check my notes here. I wrote a couple of notes and stuff down of things that I wanted to talk about, but I think that was it. Yeah, that really is it. Finishing off with Crystal Palace, I think there's lots being said about Oliver Glasner, and will he still be there, and will he make it? I think he's damaged his reputation a little bit. It's a great thing that he did for Palace last season, win the FA Cup. I watched that when I was on a stag do in Bristol. It was brilliant to see it against Man City. Well done. We love those stories. We don't just want the big rich teams dominating all the time. But I think he's damaged it, because how he's handled the whole Palace situation, for me, it's like, look, mate, unless you're at like Madrid, I was going to say Barca, but not even like Barca these days. Unless you're at Real Madrid, like, everyone's going to want to go somewhere. Do you know what I mean? And you're going to have to deal with that. And it's not easy to replace those guys either. You know, your Ezes and your Elises and your Gahys. And I don't know, a little bit toys out the pram. And for me, I'd look at Glasner and go, well, if I hire you and we then have to sell someone that does very well under you next season, which is probably the model of a club that he's going to go to, you know, someone's going to come in with big money and you're going to sell him. That's just kind of nature of the beast a little bit. So, look, he's done a good job. How he had Palace last season, he's done a good job at Frankfurt. But I don't know. I think he's just tarnished his name a little bit there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with him and to see where he ends up and everything like that come the summertime. And we'll take it from there. But I think that'll do it. I had a little bit down about Newcastle. You know, don't really feel to me that they're that kind of like real big physical dominant side that Howe had them be in the last couple of the seasons. I feel like they've lost that a little bit for me. That's how I felt watching the game last night anyway. But that's it. It was an interesting one, just checking scores on the phone this weekend and not watching games. And it's always better watching the games, but it's just cool to kind of step back into that older time period that I remember growing up with Teletext and watching the scores and everything. So, yeah, it was very interesting. Hope everyone's had a good weekend. This will be up Monday morning, so hope you've had a good start to your Monday. Like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy this video. And as always, until the next one, have a good one, all right? Peace.